Hello, and welcome to another edition of Florida Sportsman Action Spotter Podcast. I'm Captain Rick Riles. Hey, we're going to have a lot of fun this afternoon. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to start up in the northeast corner of Florida, check in with Captain David Voorhees, find out what's happening up there, work our way all the way down the East Coast, through the Keys, up the West Coast, and out the Panhandle. By the time we're done, we'll know every fish's name. And please remember, this week and every week, Florida Sportsman Action Spotter is brought to you by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. By Shimano, bringing people back to nature. By DOA Lures, the unfair advantage. By Tournament Master Chum, the best chum on earth. By Nosara Paradise Fishing, your dream vacation and a great billfish destination. And Young Boats, you want the finest in flat, spay, and offshore hybrids? You need to check out youngboats.com. All right, let's get rolling in the northeast corner of the state with Captain David Voorhees, who I believe, just got off the water. Is that right, David?
Absolutely. What a gorgeous day compared to yesterday, which it pretty much rained, but we needed the rain. I thought it was going to really muddy up the water, but it really wasn't too bad today, Rick. And the fishing this week has been just exceptional. It has been on fire. Springtime, people always ask, when's the best time to fish? And I always say spring and fall. And I tell you what, it's been an unbelievable springtime fishery. The reds are on fire. The trout are biting. Flounder have showed up. All the pelagics are also around. So we're getting some jacks, ladyfish, and, man, the Spanish mackerel all over the intercoastal right now. So it's just been an outstanding, April. I mean, every day this week, Rick, we have caught redfish that are too big to keep in the 30-inch range. And I really believe we're going to see a lot of that from now on. I think that's going to be pretty common. I think you could actually go out there and target these fish if you know where they're at and really, really put your clients on some really big, some 33, 34-inch reds and have a great day at it.
David, what does a 34-inch redfish weigh, you think?
About 12 pounds, somewhere around 12 pounds up here. But, this week I had some of my biggest slot reds. I actually had an 8-pound legal fish this week. And we don't see a lot of those in Northeast Florida, 8-pounders that are in the slot. A lot of ours are, like for the tournament guys, they're looking for that 7.5 pound. Even the upper 7. But, now over in Louisiana, it's a different ball game. They see it all the time, the 8-pound legal fish. But here in Northeast Florida, we don't see that.
I see. Well, how did that tuna turn out that I laid on you the other day?
Oh, it was absolutely gorgeous. I seared it medium rare. It was still nice and pink in the middle. Absolutely delicious. And, oh, man, I tell you what, fresh fish, it's hard to beat, isn't it?
Yeah, David, I tell you, we made it offshore last Tuesday, and I was really glad we did. We had James Menino with us, and he's a wounded warrior from back in Iraq in 2005. He was blown up in a truck, and golly, he had never heard a drag scream like he did when some of those blackfin tuna crashed it, and we had a good bite on the tuna, and then got bonused with some mahi and vermilion snapper. Our offshore fishing's good now. I just talked with Robert Johnson. He is just now tying up the Jody Lynn 2. He had 13 blackfins today, a couple of wahoo, and a mahi to go with him. So offshore is getting a little bit better every day. There just seems to be a shortage of cobia. Either nobody knows where they are or nobody's talking. But I'm with you, buddy. If you're going to find a good time to go fishing in Jacksonville, Florida, you better be packing your bags right now.
Yeah, because it doesn't get any better than what's going on right now up here in Northeast Florida.
I'll be on the ocean tomorrow. Thank you, David.
All right, Rick, tight lines, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thank you so much, Captain David Voorhees. Our thanks to David Voorhees. Sounds like it was good in the northeast corner for the week. That's outstanding. Now let's move down the state a little ways to the east central and check in with Jim Ross. Jimmy, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic, Rick.
Man, you sound like you're in a good mood. Your back must feel better.
I just came out of the chiropractor, so I'm feeling good.
That'll do it. Tell me about your fishing.
It blew over the weekend, as everybody else probably has already stated.
Sure.
But just before that, we started seeing some more cobia pop up. So
Thank
that's
God.
a good thing. Not a bunch, but, we saw a lot of rays and a few cobia. So, it's better than nothing. I wouldn't say it's red hot, but it's pretty good if you're willing to put in the time. The other thing that's really started happening is way out on the other side of the Gulf Stream, the dolphin bite has been really strong. The yellowfin have still been pretty good if you know what to look for. And most of the guys that have been going over there have been looking for the birds, but there really haven't been many birds out of the Central East region to really target, except for that lone frigate.
Uh-huh.
And Rick, I know you're a fan of that lone
I
frigate
am a
bird.
fan of the frigate bird, no doubt.
So the guys that trolled around where they would see a frigate bird, all of a sudden the tuna would come up. They were down deep, traveling. I guess the guys that said they were working side scan said they were down 60 or 80 feet. They were there, but they were moving through. They weren't up top feeding. But that frigate could see them, and he was following them. So they'd get out in front of that frigate, and they'd start to take some knockdown. So that seems to be the key. Knowing that little trick, that little subtle difference, that little, that's nothing but time on the water. That's what that is. That's straight up time on the water that allows you to go, you know what, that frigate bird is not flying around up there for his health. He's looking for something, or he's on something, and we need to investigate.
Now, I've always called the frigate bird the bird that can't lie to you. And the reason I say that is you may find a flock of seagulls going crazy. Well, there may be bread in the water, or it may be little minnows, but a frigate bird, if I'm right, Jimmy, he depends on a predator driving a bait fish out the top of the water for him to pick it up. He can't dive like a seagull can dive and pick up his food. He's literally got to pick it off the top water because he can't get his wings wet. So that's an excellent tip, and I'm glad you mentioned it. When you see a frigate, he is watching a fish that is down deep, and when the frigate gets near the surface, that's because the predator is near the surface, and that's the time you want to be there.
Exactly. So that seemed to be the tip for the guys that were chasing the yellowfin tuna. Now, going back to those dolphin, there's a pretty good bunch of weeds on the eastern edge of the stream, and that seems to be where the guys are picking those dolphin up. And some pretty good numbers. I mean, 15 and 20 fish, catches, and even some more than that. But they're all decent gaffer-sized dolphin. They haven't been those little peanuts or, whatever you want to call those little guys that aren't quite big enough to put on a gaff.
Uh-huh. Well, that's excellent. Anything going on inshore?
It's kind of a mixed bag. I would like to say that there was one thing or two things that are really hot, but there's not. We've caught everything from sail cats to tarpon this week along the intracoastal waterway here in the Indian and Banana Rivers. It's just kind of a lackluster week when it comes to numbers, but the species variety has been fairly decent. So just a mixed bag. Ladyfish jacks, sail cats, hardhead, tarpon, redfish, a few little snook around some of these little outflows now that we've had a little rain, and some speckled trout that are holding on the deeper flats. Or if you're looking for the big gator trout, you want to get super shallow wherever there's mullet. That's about it. There's been no hot bite, no hot black drum bite, no hot snook bite. But just go out there and fish, and you'll catch a different variety of species right now.
Let me tell you what, the weather we've got going right now, and at least through the next few days, Jimmy, I'll go just to go. Okay, I just want to be outside. All right. I hope they bite. But I know I want to be there. Thank you, brother. We appreciate you.
All right, you take care, Rick.
Now let's head on down the coastways to one of my all-time favorite fishing villages, Stuart, Florida. It's where Captain John Earhart is holding court, and he's got a report for us. How are you, John?
I'm good. Glad to be here.
Good. Now, last week you guys were having a hard time catching live bait. Is that still going on?
No, I got to tell you, the live bait showed up just a couple days after I talked to you, and it was very easy pickings. I did about 8 or 10 drops, and I probably had 6 or 7 dozen live greenies in the live well. So, I mean, the bait fishing has greatly improved. It's been pretty easy. It was right in front of the inlet. There was some birds diving on them. And if they weren't right on the surface, you could drive around just a little bit in about 30 to 40 feet of water, and you were marking them relatively easy too. and they were biting well. So it was real easy to get bait. You get out and fish on the reef for groupers and stuff, or slow trolling live baits for sails and mahi. Has been very productive this week. Had a lot of mahi action, and those fish have been anywhere from 5 to, I've seen a couple 18, 20-pound fish, but most of the fish that were caught last week and this week were like 5 to 15 pounds on average, and a few sailfish mixed in, and some nicer blackfin tuna too in the deeper water.
That's good. Now, John, for the blackfin tuna, are most of the guys live baiting, or are they trolling little feathers or way back, or what is the go-to for that?
Right at first light, I prefer the feathers way back, and then as you get towards 8, 9, 10 o'clock in the morning, I'll fish a live bait, and I'll try and fish it, 20 to 30 feet down. I'll use an egg sinker to get that bait fish to go down about 20 feet. And I mean, if you get a bait down 20 feet and you're in the right depth where the tuna are, you're going to be hard not to get a bite from them, because, as the sun comes up, they go down a little deeper in the water column. And if you have a live bait swimming around down there, it's game on.
Excellent. Now, you mentioned greenies. Have you seen any sardines yet?
I haven't seen many sardines this week. I mean, they should show up. Typically, it seems like I don't start to see sardines until late May and June. They could show up at any time, but typically April and May, we get hit with the greenies and the pilchards, and then as we get into summer, that's when we start getting sardines.
Are you like me? You trade a live well of greenies for a dozen sardines?
Yeah, I would prefer to have a live well full of each if it were up to me, but I think I like the sardines a little bit better, but the greenies work excellent for sailfish and mahi.
Yep. A hungry mahi will eat darn near anything he can find, that's for sure. Well, that's a great report. John, have you had anything inshore at all?
Inshore fishing's been pretty phenomenal, too. I mean, there's been a lot of the greenies around right out front. I've been sabiciing those up and going inshore and fishing around the bridges. We've been catching snook up to 40 inches this week with ease.
Ooh.
So, you better have some stamina when you're fighting those fish.
Yeah, they don't have any quit in them. There's no doubt about that. Hey, John, we had a question brought up this week, and I gave it some thought. If you could add one fish to your fishery, what would it be?
One fish to my fishery? I would say yellowtail snapper.
Okay.
I would love to have more yellowtail snapper in Stuart, Florida. I would just love to have the ability to go out on the reef and catch the big muttons like we do this time of year, and be able to flatline for the yellowtail like you do in the Keys. I mean, if we had that in Stuart, I don't think I would ever want to go anywhere else.
I'm with you. John, thanks so much. Please tell me we can give you a call next week.
Yep, I look forward to talking to you all next week.
Thank you so much, Captain John Earhart. John's report, of course, along with all our reports, are brought to you each and every week by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. By Shimano, bringing people back to nature. By DOA Lures, the unfair advantage. By Tournament Master Chum, the best chum on earth. By Nosara Paradise Rentals, your dream billfish destination. And by Young Boats. You want the finest in flat span offshore hybrids? You need to check out youngboats.com. Our thanks to John Earhart for a great Stuart report. He says if he could add anything to his fishery, it would be yellowtail snapper. I've eaten a few, and I can understand that. Now let's go on down and check in with the mayor of South Beach, Alan Sherman. Alan, how are you?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
I'm doing excellent, buddy. Doing excellent. Caught some mahi, some tunas. I'm doing good. What's going on down there?
Well, we got a little bit of all of that. Not a lot of it, but a little bit of all. We've got all the major players moving into the area. We just haven't got them in big numbers yet, but it's still early. I mean, this is the second week of April, so there's plenty of time for these fish to catch up to us. And so what's going on offshore is there's been, a lot of bonitas, that's for sure. We've had some kingfish along the reef, and the guys that are targeting them specifically are catching a lot of bonitas. They don't want to catch the bonitas, but to catch the kingfish, they've got to catch a few bonitas. So for about every 6 or 7 bonitas, they get one decent kingfish. And those fish are being caught on live baits, either free-lined under a kite or trolling, rig ballyhoo and spoons deep on a downrigger. But there's some kingfish. There's also some blackfin tunas, mostly around the wrecks or a little further offshore, but many of the wrecks are holding schools of blackfin tunas, and we're starting to see some of the bigger fish up to like 25 or 30 pounds.
There is no quit. There is no quit in a 25-pound blackfin tuna.
No, you've got one on when you're still fighting them for 30 minutes. You can pretty much cross off bonita and definitely concentrate on blackfin tuna. They don't quit. That's for sure.
If I told you that if your guys that are cursing all those bonita were to cut the shoulders out of them as soon as they catch them and ice those shoulders real good, make sure they're bled out and ice those shoulders real good, that's a fine sashimi. You wouldn't believe me, would you?
My skin is kind of crawling when you start.
Alan, I'm telling you.
See, that's the difference between Jacksonville and Miami. We have way too many species to target and eat. We'll let the bonitas work their way up to you guys, and then you have something to
eat. We somehow managed to get by on what we have to eat up here. I'm just telling you. I was off of Stewart one day, and we had the Cabo down there, and I was running it, and I ran downstairs to get something, and the mate was in there with a little tray of sashimi that he had made, and I grabbed a piece of it and I ate it. I said, that's good stuff. And he said, it's bonita. I said, yeah, right. And he said, it is. I said, no, it's not. He said, how many black fins have we caught? And I said, 4. And he said, open that fish box and count how many black fins are in there. And there were 4.
To make sure they both had both sides.
I'm telling you, they had both sides, Alan.
All right.
I was eating bonita. So while we were filming the Florida Sportsman Best Boat, we caught a bonita, and I did it for the camera crew, and they loved it.
Wow. Well, that's something for somebody else to try. I'm going to pass. I like sashimi, but I'm particular.
You're not impressed, I can tell.
Not at all. Not at all. But we've got other fish offshore. We're starting to see some big cobia showing up, eating live baits that are intended for sailfish. The guys dropping baits to the bottom for big amberjacks and muttons. They're hooking up quite a few cobias right now. So that's something to target, and they're getting a lot of them on pinfish when they fish them deep. And then there's been a few big mahi-mahi out there, cows and bulls, traveling in pairs. And some of these fish have been over 30 pounds. Now, coming in a little bit further on the inside, last time I talked to you, we were catching snook hand over fist, and we ended up with 15 that afternoon, up to 11 pounds, all released. And, we're catching a lot of trout. A month ago, 2 months ago, I would have told you there was not a trout left in the bay because the seagrasses were all pretty much done. But this is their spawning season, and it seems that what sea trout are around are schooled up and doing their thing. And a lot of guys that are fishing them or catching them. I'd only wish that they were being released and not kept, because I don't think we have huge numbers of them still. But you're allowed 3 per person up to 19 inches and 1 over 20 inches. The freshwater canals are hot. They've been hot for some time, and they still are. I was out there just a few days ago, and we were catching them on surface plugs, which is always fun to see the fish come up and crash one on the surface.
Well, Alan, you sound as chipper as you can be, and it sounds like a much better week's fishing for you guys. I'm going to count on that sticking around for the next month.
Well, we just had that front push through, and now the weather is supposed to be like what you're having right now. So I'm going to hold you to that.
You got it. Thank you, brother. We appreciate you.
Take care.
Captain Alan Sherman checking in.
You know what Yamaha outboards love? The genuine formula and consistency of Yamalube marine engine oils.
What?
Outboards are subjected to punishing conditions like high loads, salt, and humidity, a mix that automotive oils can't handle. Yamalube full synthetic and marine performance formulas are certified to protect against friction and corrosion for reliable performance every time. Find Yamalube marine oils at your nearest Yamaha outboard dealer. Locate them at yamahaoutboards.com/dealers. Yamaha, reliability starts here.
Hey, Raj, being consistent is the mark of a quality product. If you've been Florida's #1 chum for over 10 years, there's got to be a reason.
For 10 years, Tournament Master Chum has lived up to its name. That's why more tournament pros insist on Tournament Master than any other chum. It's the only chum with menhaden milk mixed right in. That means it gets the scent out faster and deeper than any other brand of chum. It comes in a grind size for every species from kingfish to catching bait. Your fishing time is way too precious to you second-rate chum. Bring the action to you by insisting on Tournament Master Chum. It's worth every penny.
When you're ready for the finest in custom-made flat spay or inshore-offshore hybrids, you are ready to meet the Young family in Inglis, Florida. For over 21 years, the Young family has built custom boats one at a time for every type of fishing. Nothing can sneak up on a flat quite like the Gulf Shore flats boats, and I've never fished a better hybrid than the Young 24s and 27s. Rob Young is a naval architect who takes tremendous pride in each and every build for each and every customer that wants their boat custom built exactly the way they want it. Is it time for you to move up? Are you ready to own the finest boat built? Then you need to visit the Young Boat facility in Inglis, Florida, or check them out online at youngboats.com. Let's go over to 10,000 Islands, where our buddy Steve Dahl knows every fish by their first name. Steve, how are you?
I'm well, Rick. How are you doing today?
Excellent, buddy. Excellent. Let's see. Eating mahi and getting ready to go back tomorrow. Yeah, I'm doing okay.
Well, nice. Nothing wrong with that.
No, sir. No, sir. It's springtime. Have you heard?
I have, and it's in full force down here in the 10,000 Islands. Our tarpon migration has started, and it's probably my favorite time of year. I love chasing tarpon. That first wave of fish is usually extremely cooperative, and they've been a little closer to shore than they normally are, which is great. And they're starting to set up a little bit in some adjacent bays, some shallow water bays that are warming up real quick. Water temps are climbing. You're going to find fish pretty much in the area passes. Look at probably the 6 or 7 major passes in our area. So Sandfly, Dismal, West Pass has been holding some fish, and then look just on the outside of those on the lower tide stages. That's where those fish are going to be, and then as the tide comes in or goes out, you're following the fish either in or out of the passes. So you can certainly catch them. They're greyhounding out in the just outside on the outside islands of those passes. But if you're more of a savvy, tarpon fisherman and want to cast some artificials at them, there's opportunities to do that on the outside islands or in these aforementioned, adjacent bays. You can sight fish some of these fish laid up, and these are our migratory fish. There's fish in that 80 to 130 pound class. There's fish pushing probably 150 pounds that I don't want to deal with.
I've seen that movie.
Yeah, right. And but it's on. We're actually having I've had the fortunate having some anglers on board who like to cast artificials, and we've been doing really well on 5-inch paddle tail swim baits and darker hues, a straight black, a black and purple, blacks and blues, normal darker hued stuff for tarpon that are doing really well. Tried something a little bit different last year. If you guys want a little bit of an edge to your swim bait bites, take a page from our bass fishing routes. Take a half-ounce swim jig, cut the brush guard off, the weedless brush guard, and now you have a skirted paddle tail swim bait. Just gives it a much bigger profile. If they're usually these first wave of fish that are really aggressive, especially around a new or a full moon, are going to eat a lot more aggressive. And boy, you can cast that thing a country mile. Just gives it a much bigger profile and stands out more so than anything else.
Steve, did I understand you right that a half-ounce jig head's enough?
It is. It's not bad. I mean, we're only fishing probably, these fish are, when I say they're on the outside, we're fishing 8 to 15 feet of water. They're on the upper third of the water column. And then that will certainly work in the, in the adjacent, shallow water bays. But yeah, just a half ounce, that's all you got. And that coupled with, the heavier plastic, like 5-inch swim baits, that's a pretty bulky, thing to cast. You're well over a half ounce on that. You can cast it a mile.
What's your go-to swim bait?
I like the Wise Guys Tackle Great Bambino. That comes in 22 colors at this point, and there's some darker hues that were added this year. The purple haze color is really good. There's one called the Indigo Mafioso, which is like a black and blue and a little hint of silver in it. That's a real good one to use right now.
Gotcha. Outstanding. Well, it sounds like you guys are having a great time down there with the tarpon. Please tell me we can talk next week.
Oh, love to.
Good deal. Looking forward to it. Thank you so much, Steve Dahl. Keep them straight down there in 10,000 Islands. You know, we've survived winter, and my favorite time of year is here. It's time to put away the high-speed Wahoo gear and break out some of the tackle that can put the fun back in blue water fishing. Listen, we all dream about the days when a blue marlin crashes our spread, but let's talk some facts here. Almost all the marlin we see off Florida are under 300 pounds, and we just don't see the 50-pound dolphin like we used to. So why not stop by one of the strike zones and check out the new Talicas and Speedmasters designed to put the fun back in blue water fishing? Now, what makes Shimano and Strike Zone the only team you need to know? That's because while you're buying your new weapons, the staff at Strike Zone can splice 500 yards of braid backing on your new reels just to make sure there's nobody in the blue water neighborhood that you can't handle. So stop by Strike Zone and feel the weight of the new Talavera rods matched with Speedmaster or Talica reels. You'll see in a hurry that it's time to put the fun back in Florida blue water fishing. Our thanks to Captain Steve Dahl for a great 10,000 Islands report. Now, we're going to swing around into the southwest area of Florida, one of my favorite places, and talk to one of my favorite captains, Snook Stamp Charter's own Greg Stamper. Greg, how are you?
I'm doing very well, Rick. Been fishing a lot this week and having some fun. How about you? Doing good?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Let me choke down one more mahi finger here, and oh man, I tell you, I'm getting too fat, Greg. This isn't pretty, but no, we're doing real good. Our weather's gotten good and our fishing's gotten better. So how about down there?
It's been very good. The redfish bite's been pretty consistent. The few days it wasn't, we were able to go after things like our spotted sea trout and our pompanos and mackerels and whatnot. So on the days when things weren't really working out real well in the back bay, it was all good. But on the days it was working really well, we caught a lot of really nice redfish. These are all, again, mid-slot to over-slot fish, and we caught quite a few more snook this week. So even with the transition, we had like a little kind of front that shouldn't even have been here. These fish are starting to move out. They're going to have a great time this next month or two. But the fishing is getting very good, better and better every week. And I'm ready for like no more socks. I'm ready to wear flip-flops and be out in the morning sweating. So life is good. The tarpon are going to be here full time in about another week or so. We did have a little bit of a slowdown on those, but they're going to turn around and come right back to us. I'm sure that the reports down south, they're probably blowing up tarpon because we had them here, and then they kind of moved south a little bit. The fish that the guys are catching right now are mostly on cut bait, just sitting still, waiting for them. They're really not going after these massive schools. But I think next week I'll probably be telling you that they're all over the place. You guys are going crazy.
Gotcha. Boy, that sounds good. Hey, Greg, if you could add one fish to your fishery down there, what would it be?
So, Rick, I've had the privilege of working around some of the old timers that used to fish back in my neck of the woods, the Cerro Bay, Pine Island Sound, the Coonsackee River, that were, well, they were older than you, Rick. So, you know, they were up there. I'm not going to throw any shade here, but they used to tell. I'm sorry, buddy.
Yeah, it's
they
all right.
used to tell me about chasing cobia and triple tail in our back bays on a regular basis, something that they could actually target and rely on. And even though every once in a while, you know, on a blue moon, I have an opportunity at one or two here and there, we don't see that anymore. But talking to those old timers, they used to talk about that was a normal thing in our neighborhood, which it's kind of like when I was a kid, all the old trippers tell me about sailfish in Biscayne Bay, and I'm like, get out of here, man. That's not how it works. But it's the truth. They used to be here. We keep things going in the right direction. They may come back. I haven't seen very many in my neck of the woods, but it would be really awesome if I can catch some legit cobia in 3, 4, 5 feet of water in my neck of the woods.
Greg, I wish, I probably shouldn't even tell this story on myself, and I wish it wasn't true, but I hear guys talking about how our cobia aren't in trouble, and you know, and we're catching them limits, no problem, and all this, and I want to tell them that one of my best friends, Roger Walker, and I met on the day that we were both running our own boats for the first time. It just ironically. So it was over 50 years ago. We went out of our inlet. I went first, and I didn't know Roger at the time. I had just gone on my own, and I ran out of the inlet and made a left and immediately saw a huge school of big brown fish swimming on top of the water. And we hooked a double, and here came Roger out, and he saw me, and he just came over, and he said, "Was there a manta ray?" And I said, "Yeah, it's right over there." And they cast, and I hate to say it, but between the two of us, we killed over 50 cobia that day. And they were
never do that now.
No, well, I wouldn't want to, and I never would, but just the sheer numbers. And Greg, we're not talking little fish. Roger had a 72, I think, but all these fish were.
Oh, no, I understand. And the guys, old Captain Mac and a few of the old timers who were allowed to use dynamite to blow out holes underneath mangroves back in those days so they knew what the fish could be. They told me stuff that I was like, they were like, "Oh, no, we only wanted the 20-pounders. And we just sit right out of here, right off the bank, right out of the marina, and we just wait for them to swim across the flat." And I'm like, really?
Yeah. And there's a lot of work to be done to bring our fishery back. And we're never going to take it back to where it was 50 years ago. But when somebody catches 2 cobia in a day and says cobia are fine, yeah, maybe not so much.
No, I know.
You got it. Thank you, Greg. We appreciate it as always. We look forward to talking to you next week. Captain Greg Stamper with a great report. Starting to see a few cobia. There seem to be more this week, just about everywhere. Hey, Greg's report and all of our reports are brought to you by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. By Shimano, bringing people back to nature. By DOA Lures, the unfair advantage. By Tournament Master Chum, the best chum on earth. By Nosara Paradise Fishing, your dream vacation. And by Young Boats. You want the finest in flat span and offshore hybrids? You need to check out youngboats.com. Our thanks to Greg Stamper for a great Southwest Florida report. Now let's pull into West Florida, where hopefully the lightning and the rain and the thunder have stopped and the sky is blue. Talk to me, Captain Ray Markham.
It most certainly is all just like that right at the moment. And I think we're good for a good portion of the week, but it looks like it may go south again towards the end of the week if the weathermen are right. But you know what? Every time we got weather that does that kind of thing and stirs everything up, the fish kind of hunker down for a little while, but they come roaring back right after all this stuff clears up. And if you're out there right now, I'm sure you're one of those guys that's got a rod bent. So lots of stuff going on, Mr. Rick.
You figure if you had a line out right now, your rod would be bent. Is that right?
Yes, sir. I do believe so. You know, we've got tons and tons of fish out there. There were lots and lots of mackerel and kingfish that were absolutely going bonkers just prior to the weather coming in. And I'm sure they're probably ready to get back at it as these schools of bait fish kind of get back together. The weather kind of breaks them up a little bit, but as soon as they start getting back together, these fish just go game on again. So that's kind of what's going on around here on the nearshore waters and the offshore waters. Guys are catching plenty of red grouper if they're getting out beyond 120 feet. Lots of mangrove snapper still inside the bays. So if somebody's looking to go out and catch a few fish to take home, the mangrove snapper was real active. With the bad weather, it kind of spurred up another sheepshead bite.
Ray, I got to tell you, I have always liked bad weather sheepshead fishing. In fact, when I sheepshead fished a lot, I would specialize in the days when the waves were crashing against the jetties. I felt like it knocked the food loose and really fired the sheepshead up. So I'm not a bit surprised to hear that the sheepshead were biting best when the weather was at its worst.
You know, I hadn't really considered that, but that's a good point.
Hey, listen, Ray, we appreciate the heck out of it. Please tell me we can check in with you again next week.
Yes, sir, absolutely. Look forward to it.
You got it. All right, thanks to Ray Markham for a great West Central report. Now we're going to pull up into the Big Bend and talk to one of my favorite guys on the planet, Captain William Toney. William, how are you?
Doing good, man. Just getting off the water here in beautiful downtown Homosassa here up on the Big Bend and, you know, looking forward to a good weekend of fishing.
I tell you what, if this weather holds like it is, it sure sounds like the fish are ready to go. What's biting in your area?
Well, if you're looking for trout, it's kind of a little bit deeper game. We're going to have, coming toward the weekend, the tides are going to be all spread out a little bit. So we're looking at incoming late afternoon and outgoing basically from about, dark 30 in the morning till, mid-afternoon. So trout and just good action, actually, with, bluefish, jacks, Spanish mackerel, trout, sea bass, small gag grouper, and all that out toward the foul area. And that's an area between Homosassa and Crystal River that's just loaded up full of rocks out there. And the best thing to do is just set up a drift and everybody throw a 1/8 ounce jig head. And I've been using mirror lure, watermelon red flake, Little Johns, or provokers. And you make nice long casts ahead of your drift and just bounce it vertically toward the bottom. And I think those fish are out there because of the shrimp hatch. And so you'll get through a productive area, and you could do it old school like I do and keep a marking jug. It's basically a bleach jug with about 15 feet of line and a lead weight, and toss it out. Or you can punch a number in your GPS until you can get so many numbers you forget which ones are which. But the jug will show you the productive area, and just give them a wide berth and just keep drifting through, until you get the fish you want.
You don't even want to learn how to spell GPS, do you?
No, it starts with a J, right?
Yeah, I think so. I only know, of all the great captains I only know two that still throw a jug, and you are one of them. I think that's fantastic. I tell you what, I threw many a jug in my time, and was fortunate enough to be on a party boat one time as a mate when the captain ran over a new helicopter that nobody had ever found. And he threw 6 jugs before we were done. I mean, he wanted to make sure he wanted to make sure we weren't going to lose that helicopter. Hey, William, if I can get off tomorrow, if I could, which unfortunately I can't because I'm going fishing, but if I could get off tomorrow and drive over there to the Big Bend, what would be your best bet? How would you put me on fish? What would be the best thing we'd do?
All right, this is what I would suggest. First thing, if for the action, you need to head out to that 8 to 12 foot range in the foul area or any rocky area out there. As you get further north than Homosassa, Crystal River, probably at about 4 to 7 foot range on a good grass flat. You throw in just that jig head and a dark colored jig, getting the action with those trout. Now, as the tide gets up later in the day, what I prefer to do, as soon as I see that tide change, and a lot of times our sea breeze will coincide the same time as that tide will change. You'll feel that west, like today it was a northwest wind. When it does that and it starts bending that grass, then it's time to start thinking about moving inshore for your redfish and snook. And a lot of times it's starting to get a little warmer here, so the keys, on the outside keys and western-facing points, those redfish will move off of a flat and come in and start to feed on those points. Now, if you wait too long, like we did today, we had shore lunch and went out. As the tide gets real deep, those fish will move into the interior of those keys. So if you waste time and don't make it to that point, what I suggest is moving into the next tier. So you got the western edge of the keys. The next tier would be the next keys that are inside. And here on the Big Bend, especially Citrus County, you got a myriad of keys that run back 3 to 4 miles all the way to hard land, or we call the hill. So you want to hit that next set of keys on that deeper tide, looking for those western-facing points. Mullet jumping is a good indicator, that there's redfish or snook there. We've been catching redfish and snook on live pinfish, and also the redfish have been hitting live shrimp. Now, if you prefer lures, that same watermelon red flake mirror lure provoker will catch the redfish and also the snook. And also, don't forget about your Johnson Gold Spoons or those Mike Hackler.
Okay, so I'm going to stop by the tackle shop on my way. What tails you want me to bring for those jig heads?
I would get, like I said, the mirror lure provoker. I like the Little Johns. They're a little bit smaller, and they do have a lot of action. The provoker is just a longer bait and works real well. Now, another very good lure for snook here in our area is get the DOA 1/8 ounce chartreuse short shank jig head with those 5.5. It's number 305 glow jerk baits. That is snook candy around this area. And some people confuse it. They say, well, they're white. Nope, get glow. And those worked around the points or sometimes just off of the points on the outside keys. You'll see these bigger sand holes that kind of have a yellow bottom. If you notice one of those sand holes has a dark bottom in it, that's all snook land there.
William, that's a great report. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
Yep, I will be here next week. Right now it looks like we got a couple people rolling through on our golf carts up here at the stop sign. I'm going to have to go reprimand them.
Keep them under control. You make sure they come to you make sure they come to a full stop, William Tony. There'll be no tapping the brakes.
Both ways.
That's it. You got it.
Old man Tony out here.
You got it. Thank you, Officer William Tony. We appreciate it. You know, most of us guys here on Florida Sportsman Podcast are hardcore saltwater fishermen until April rolls around. That's because there's just nothing more exciting than watching a largemouth explode on a DOA PT being walked weedless through some of the freshwater grass beds that dot our state. You want a jolt to make your heart skip a beat? Try swimming a weedless DOA snake through some lily pads with dawn's fog still on the water. Once the sun comes up, the DOA worms can dredge Big Mama off her bed with the best of them. DOA gives you the unfair advantage. Our thanks to William Tony for a great Big Bend report. Now, you can't get out of Florida till you go out the Panhandle. That's where we'll find Captain Tyler Massey. Tyler, what's going on, buddy?
Hey, Rick. Y'all doing all right over there?
Outstanding. I tell you what, I'm just finishing off a plate of mahi fingers. The sky is blue. The ocean is flat. Life is good.
There you go. That's all you can ask for right there.
Can't ask for more than that, buddy. What's going on out there?
No, so fishing's definitely picking up over here. You know, we're getting into our summertime trend here, and you know everything's coming to life. We got our bait showing back up. You know, Spanish mackerels, king mackerel showing up in the Gulf. Inshore, you know, everything's coming onto the flats and getting back to normal. So, you know, the best bites right now is inshore redfish in Santa Rosa Sound has been really good. So that's just pitching boat docks with live shrimp and, you know, using a jig head or a Carolina rig. And that's kind of what we've been focusing on some of our inshore trips. And then other than that, Spanish mackerel just around the bay and at the mouth near our pass. Trolling, spoons, casting, all that stuff's working really good for them Spanish mackerel right now.
Anybody make it out to the deep water yet? You got any reports from there?
Yeah, we did. So, you know, we have some new fads that they've put out by the counties over here. A couple guys have went out on our last weather window there. There's a few blue marlins hooked up, catching some chicken dolphins and some blackfin tunas too. So, you know, that's kind of a new fishery for us. Those fads, they just got put out last fall. Hopefully they produce like we think they will. And it's just an easy place to go for people who don't really want to just troll open water. Gives us some structure out there, kind of focus our energy on. So that's going to be probably the hottest blue water area for us going forward, hopefully. So interesting to see how that's going to work out.
How far offshore is that, Tyler?
The closest ones, there's 8 fads they put out there. The closest are about 50, maybe 55 miles from Pensacola Pass, and the furthest are about 65 or almost 70 miles from the pass. They're in deep water, and they're in a good zone. So, you know, hopefully they'll hold fish, you know, maybe year round.
That makes for a good troll. You work your way that 12 miles, the length of that area, and work your way back, and you're ready to take up and go home if you catch a few fish.
Yeah, definitely. You know, it kind of gives people a place to focus their energy on instead of, you know, looking for good water or you know, or trolling a specific zone or whatever. Hopefully it makes it a little easier for our trolling fishery around here.
That's cool. That's super cool. Captain Tyler, we appreciate it ever so much. Please tell me we can check in with you next week.
I'll be here.
Captain Tyler Massey takes us out of Florida and wraps up our action spotter for tonight. Hey, it's been a lot of fun, and everybody was in a good mood. You notice what spring does for guys? I tell you what, we get a few fish, we get a few calm days, and everybody's fired up. Now, it seems to me like the cobia are finally centered around the Cape where they should be this time of year. Hopefully they won't get banged up too bad before they make it up here to my home waters in Northeast Florida, but it's good to hear that there's some around. Was real happy to hear about big dolphin. We didn't talk about it, but there was a 58 brought into St. Augustine this week. And down in Stewart, John Earhart was talking about bigger dolphin. There's been some bulls and cows down in Miami to hear Alan Sherman talk. and they are centered under the frigate birds, which is where you should pay attention if you want to catch a lot of mahi. You come around to the southwest, and who could be having a better time over there than Greg Stamper? I tell you, he and Steve Dahl are just doing great on tarpon. There's lots of redfish in their area. The Southwest Florida is on fire right now. And from the west, central west, all the way up out through the Panhandle, it's kingfish and Spanish. And it sounds like the numbers are really good this year. So the reports are good, and they're only going to get better. Hey, listen, we so appreciate you listening to the Florida Sportsman Action Spotter podcast. If you've got any questions, if there's anything you'd like us to change, we would love to hear about it. We love doing the podcast, and we sure hope you enjoy hearing them. They're brought to you each and every week by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. By Shimano, bringing people back to nature. By DOA Lures. The Unfair Advantage by Tournament Master Chum, the best chum on earth by Nosara Paradise Fishing, your dream vacation, and by Young Boats. You want the finest in flat spay and offshore hybrid boats? You need to check out youngboats.com. Hey, until next week, I'm Captain Rick Riles, and we will see you on the Blue Water Rip.